Welcome back to another episode of the Mulligans and Milkshakes podcast presented by Crimson Crossover. I'm Christian Sykes, joined by Charles Branch and Matthew Travis as always. This week I don't know if I want to do the podcast. I kind of got my butt beat in fantasy this week. I learned that never to trust Meredith Scheffler ever again. So we're going to dive into the RBC Heritage, talk a little bit about the SEC Championship upcoming for the men's golf team, and then look forward to the Zurich Classic with, Lee Hodges is playing, Davis Riley is playing, and then obviously our guest last week, Robbie Shelton, is also playing. So happy to have you guys along for the ride, and let's get started, guys. So where do we want to start? I guess, do we want to start at the RBC or the SEC?
No. We want to start at Rock Barn. Christian Sykes, what was it, 210 yards out?
It was 210.
At the side of the green. That's where we have to start this week.
Yeah, it was like a 400 it was like a 500. I don't know the exact number. I think maybe it was like 480 par 5. Hit a drive down, over there was if you saw in the video, which we'll I guess post again on the links in this following this podcast. But there's a tree that is probably 10, like not 10, 6 to 7 feet above like my eyes. So I'm looking at the tree. I can't really see the green. And I'm sitting there with my wife, which, we go golf together sometimes, Sam and I do. And like I've said previously, I don't hit that hybrid well at all. I have a new Ping G435 hybrid that I in the simulator when I bought it, I hit it really, really well. And then since then, I haven't been able to hit it. I mean, it's a brand new club that looks like it's beaten up because I've hit the ground so much. It's not even funny. So before the round, I'm going to the driving range and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna figure out this hybrid. So it's the only thing I hit, and I kind of got into a groove of how to hit it and whatnot. And so these guys in front of us were playing super slow, and I'm like, screw it, I'm probably gonna hit this in the water. Like, let me just go ahead and hit the ball. Like, I'm just gonna, why not? Like, I'm terrible at golf, might as well take a hybrid out and just go over the water, make it a little fun. It's a par 5, so it's 210 out from the green, take the hybrid, and I hit it, and I hear a thunk. And where the water was in that video, there's a large like wooden, I guess structure, not structure, but like a railing or whatever you call it around the green. And so I'm like, okay, I almost got there. I hit hit the wood. And Sam goes, no, Christian, it's like next to the green. And I said, no, it's not. I just heard it hit the wood. And she's like, Christian, I promise you, I see the ball. It's next to the green. And I just like, I mean, I lost it. I was like, man, why can't I just do this? Like that's like one of those shots that's like, why can't I do that every single time? But it was green side, and we don't talk about what happened after. After I hit that shot, but let it be known that I almost got to the green in 2 on a par 5, and that's gonna be where the story ends.
I believe you played golf too, right, Charles?
Yeah, I played. I got off to a terrible start. I was 9 over through 3, but then on the last 15, I finished not 9 over from there. So shot 88 on a par 70. Was unfortunate on my second hole, where it's typically you're taking an iron off the tee, and I just hit it really thin, and there's a creek that's protecting the green. So it's a par 4 that, you could take a driver out if you want to, but people can make fun of you of laying up on a short par 4. This one's like, no, you play it safe. Well, I catch it thin, and it's going right down the middle of the fairway and just keeps rolling and rolling and goes into the creek, and then just kind of going back and forth from sand trap to sand trap from there, and then finally finished the hole with a 9. So not real happy with that one, but continue to keep playing, just kind of working on the tempo of my swing, trying to finish shots, keep my head down. My most exciting part was the 14th hole for me on the course that I play on. Is typically one of those holes that I'm losing a stroke and a half. I'm 1.5 over, and I actually birdied that hole. So that was nice to, hit a shot that was about 10 feet and then make the putt. And I was thinking about, one, I was excited just to make a 10-footer. Typically it's something, I'm close, but not making something like that. So one, I was initially excited to make the putt. It was like, oh yeah, and I just made the putt for birdie. So it was a good way to finish the round. I shot 39 on the back nine, which is my best score for a 9 in years, probably. But again, just good to get out there and keep working on it and have some of those shots that just keep bringing you back. They keep you wanting to keep trying. What about you, Matthew?
I played on Saturday. I was gonna play on Sunday, but storm ripped through here a little bit on Sunday, and decided I didn't want to play cart path only golf. But I played Saturday, played really well on the front. What I've been working on recently is my putting. My putting has been one of the strongest parts of my game for years, but I got away from trying to make long putts and just trying to two putt, which helps when I have like 30 footers, whatever. But when I have 15, 20 footers that sometimes are makeable, it's hurting me, and or even shorter than that. And on the front nine, I had a couple of putts where 10 footers, yeah, I even put it, I was 100 out on the fourth hole and put it to 5, 6 feet and missed the birdie putt and barely made the comebacker. But I was just playing really good golf, but I think I birdied 7, 9, and 10, and then 11, 12 I bogeyed and to get back to even. And this 15 the 16th hole was just crazy. So it's just under a 300-yard hole. If the wind's not in your face, it's a drivable green, which is what I which is what I go for most of the time. Put my first ball in the water. It was kind of a lazy swing. I faded it. It just faded off the face of the earth. And then I was like, well, might as well go for the green again with my second ball. I put it off the tee to literally 5 feet and made a par on a par four after putting it in the water, which was stupid. But I've done that a couple times on that hole, but had an eagle putt on seven that I missed and finished with a 74, which was one of my better rounds as of late. I've kind of been working on my swing on the bringing the club back, which yesterday or Saturday, excuse me, was working out pretty well for me. So pleased with that, and I have my member guests this weekend, so hopefully I can keep it going through the weekend.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
As far as mine, I mean, I've come on here and I say there's always one part of my game that never works out when I play a round of golf. This time it was my short game. I mean, I was driving the ball like probably on average, I was probably hitting it between like 270, 280, which is really, really good for me. Most of my shots, because the course was pretty short, were wedge shots. I don't think I took an iron out of my bag unless I was playing, a par three. I think it was only a couple of times that I did that. And I just could not, for the life of me, get my short game to cooperate. Like I could be greenside and I would just duff a chip and it would roll out 40 feet. And then I would have, a 2 or 3 putt to save bogey or save par or whatever. And then, I would be 70 yards away. And usually you would think that that's like go zone for, someone to put it. And I don't think I hit a green in regulation the entire day, if I'm being completely honest. Well, I guess technically I did on that par five. It was a green regulation, but so it was just frustrating because the time I played before last, like my second shot was always terrible, or my drive wasn't great, but then my short game was really, really good. And it's like just putting it together. If I was able to put it together, I probably could have shot in the 80s, which would have been amazing for me. But obviously that's the problem with golf is you have to be able to put the whole thing together. So but I think the more important thing, and I told you about this yesterday, Charles, was I played with Sam, and we were playing, I think it was like the 15th hole, and she takes her driver, which she doesn't hit it very far, and she was having a rough round or whatever, and she steps up and hits the most perfect drive I've ever seen from her. Like probably would have gone close to 200 yards, which is really, really good for her. except there was one issue. The 15th hole has water in front of the green, and you essentially, like, I had to take a hybrid off the tee because it was like 250 from where I was playing, it was like 250, 260 from the water. So from where she was playing, it was like 170, 160 yards. So she hits a drive, and this is the last shot she hit the entire day, was because she had a perfect drive that went directly into the water. And she was like, man, if I would have gotten it on the green. I said, Sam, you weren't getting on the green. But, she had a frustrating round of golf, but
Happens.
yeah, it was just unfortunate because, like, it was one of those shots that, like, you talk about, oh, shots that keep you coming back. Like, that would have been a shot that like keeps her coming back because it was a really good shot, but she hit it too good, which was unfortunate for her. So, but yeah, that's that. I ended up shooting a 92, which that's a 92 with the way I score, which Matthew knows because he's played with me. It's not really a 92, but it's a 92 in my book.
Here's the real question. Did the over or the under hit for Mulligans?
The over already hit by the time you hit that tweet. Like, so the thing about me, unless I'm playing in like a scramble, or if I'm playing like with some guys that want to keep score. So like if I'm, going out and doing a 2v2 scramble, then I'll actually like count my out of bounds and count my, I usually don't hit multiple shots when I'm after I'm off the tee, if that makes sense. Like I'll stick with the shots I have, but like if I'm off the tee and I'm just playing around to play around, if I hit one in the woods, I'm not going to count it, just because like I'm not keeping track I'm not like you, Matthew, where I'm trying to, make sure my handicap stays. I'm not good enough for that to really matter, if I'm going to be completely honest. So I'll just step up and hit another one and just count from there. But yeah, no, the over definitely already hit by the time you sent that tweet. I usually I feel like I hit less mulligans than I normally do. But it still it's probably like 9 or 10 if I'm gonna be completely honest. So
hey, if you're not playing for money and not trying to keep a handicap, then go out there and have some fun and just try and get better.
yeah, and if I enter anything, I always enter max handicap. So it's not like it really matters.
I don't know if this really counts as a mulligan, but the only time I'm really like, there's and y'all probably, you've hit a shot, you hit it well, but and you have an idea of where it went, but then you get there and you just can't find where the ball is. And I'm not talking about like in the woods, like
PGA Tour rules. If they're spectators or patrons, as they call them in Augusta, they're finding that ball.
right. Like I'm by myself playing. If I'm playing with somebody else who's got a settled eyes on it, like we know where that ball is. So if I have something like that and I drop a ball, I typically am not counting a lost ball stroke for myself. And that's maybe against the rules for, keeping handicaps and stuff like that.
I
But
think
that's
it happens.
like,
People do it.
Yeah. Again, like if I know like there's no water in play, there's no trees in play, anything like that, it's like I'm just out here by myself. I'm not going to give myself a stroke just because I can't find the ball when it should be. It's in play. It's just for whatever reason I can't find it.
Matthew, that course that I played, you would have destroyed that course. I'm not joking.
Why do you say that?
It was short.
Oh,
Really, like
you said it's one of the top rated public ones in Charlotte?
it's Charlotte area.
Gotcha. Interesting. Have you been out to Edgewater?
Mm-hmm.
Edgewater is one of my favorite public courses in Charlotte, but probably not new, but I'm surprised I hadn't heard about it because high school we played all of them. And I worked at 2 different courses, so I got to play like all the courses around Charlotte, but most of the time they were private, so I guess that explains that. But interesting. It looked pretty nice. The fairways looked pretty pure from the picture and video you sent.
The par fours, a lot of them, at least from where I was playing, were under 300 yards.
Wow. I mean,
Like,
that sounds like I can drive the green on a lot of the par fours.
I was close to driving the green on a few of them.
Wow.
And I'm not the longest hitter. Like when I say that a large majority of my shots were 100 yards and in on my second shot, which is, I was like, this is like, again, if I could have hit my second shot well, I could have scored really low
Yeah,
just
I mean,
because of how.
you said the par five was 480, which even
Yeah,
a par five standards, that's pretty short. But what tees did you play?
I was playing the whites, just
So
because Sam
third,
plays the reds. Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. But I mean, the tips were maybe only like 20 yards behind us,
Yeah,
like not
I
even.
mean, even still, it sounds like it's a decently short course.
Yeah, it would have been fun. The greens were really pure and really firm.
Good.
So it wasn't like an easy course, but it definitely was a scoreable one. Like I was driving out and some guy was like, "Oh, I shot a 68 today." So like it was scoreable, but
That'd be nice.
uh, well, let's move on after our weekend rounds of golf to and maybe we do something like that maybe every other week because I don't get to play every week. So maybe we just, check in, see if we all three played in a week and maybe we can do a little recap for us for people to start off the show. But let's move into the SEC tournament, which is this week for the men's golf team. Before I do that, Charles, I'm going to put you on the spot. We didn't really talk about the women's tournament. Can you let us know how the women's golf team finished on the SEC tournament?
I didn't see where they finished. I don't think they made it to the actual match play portion. I think it's been a little bit of a challenge for Mick Potter's group this year. I know the tournament was down in Florida, which I know really, hones into a specific area. But I think after the first day they were tied for 10th. So I'm not sure what their prospects are right now as far as making the NCAA tournament on the women's side. And didn't see a whole lot of information. So hopefully we can start bringing some more information for them as well. Talking about the golf that we had this weekend, there's a lot of golf just for Alabama in general that we kind of missed as far as, Trey Mullinax and being on the Corn Ferry, Wilson Furr down in the other PGA event. And you had 3 ladies that were also in the Chevron Championship this week as well, or last week as well. So we'll try to do a better job of that going forward and making sure we got everybody that are in these fields. And I think Dickie Pride and Jay Bone were also in the championship tour as well. They both played. So a lot of Alabama golf out there this week, and try to do a better job of letting people know when people are teeing off and what tournaments they can watch outside of just PGA Tour and men's golf.
As for you mentioned Wilson, Bud Cauley was in that as well. It's tough to keep track when we've got 2 tournaments going on, but Wilson made the cut, finished at 5 under on the tournament. Billy Horschel won that at 23 under. It was fun to watch with Wesley Bryan playing well. I don't know if you guys watch any of his videos, but it was cool to see him playing really well. He won the RBC Heritage a couple years ago, but this was his best finish in 7 years for Wesley Bryan. But that's South Carolina. Wilson Furr, as I mentioned, finished 5 under. It was a scoreable course, tied for 55th, and then Bud didn't make the cut. He finished at 3 under. But yeah, like you mentioned, but that was women's golf. I just wanted to chime in because Wilson had a solid week playing wise. Just a lot of low numbers down in Punta Cana.
Yeah. It's kind of becoming like Alabama football in the NFL. You've got so many players that you can't keep up with. Everybody goes and somebody got dropped from one team but got picked up on the other team and didn't even know they were playing for them. But it's a good problem to have, that's for sure.
Okay, so we're going to the championship, SEC championship.
Starts on Wednesday. Just an incredible field as it typically is for SEC golf. I mean, you got 9 teams that are in the top 25 right now, and Mississippi State and South Carolina are also receiving votes. So that means when you get to the match play portion, you're going to have at least one top 25 team that's not making the quarterfinals into match play, just to show you the strength of what the SEC is. Before getting into the SEC championship and kind of previewing last year, I wanted to go back and just look at what had happened in Jerry Pate's tournament, just because that's the last time you had all 14 teams together. And obviously Alabama had Nick Dunlap at that point, and Nick won the stroke play portion of the Jerry Pate over Gordon Sargent from Vanderbilt. But Alabama as a team finished 8th and beat Florida in their match play in that 7-8 spot. It came down to for the championship for Jerry Pate between Auburn and Vanderbilt, which we could very well see again this week. Auburn's currently ranked number 1 in the country as far as coaches poll for golf rankings. Vanderbilt's number 3. Auburn won, I think it was 3-1-1 in the Jerry Pate tournament, and that's where they were playing Birmingham. That's interesting that Gordon Sargent has grown up playing at Birmingham. Ryan Eshelman for Auburn's team. His dad, Eric, is the PGA pro at Birmingham. So it's probably both guys, but both teams that have had an opportunity to play that course a lot, just in the off season and things like that. So it was great to have both those teams, get there to the top and be competitive. And now, as you go out to Sea Island and play the Seaside course, Vanderbilt, Florida won it last year. They beat Vanderbilt 3-1-1. But prior to that, Vanderbilt had won the previous 2 years. So Vanderbilt's had a lot of success in the SEC tournament recently. And it's guys like Gordon Sargent and Cole Sherwood. And it's playing Walker Cup ball. You got guys that are really, really good at golf. I mean, we saw that, in the Mason Rudolph where they were 30 under as a team. And even though that's their home course, that's still pretty impressive. But as far as Alabama, Cannon had a great tournament last year where he finished 4th at 6 under. Jonathan Grizz was even par. Thomas Ponder, he finished 1 over, but he was in second from stroke play. Unfortunately, shot a 77 on the last day. But again, a guy that I would think, could have some confidence going into, I can put some good rounds together. I just need to finish strong. As a team, Alabama finished 8 under last year, which was tied for 4th with Vanderbilt, and that's who they matched up with in the quarterfinals. The 4-1 score for match play doesn't really show how close of a match that was. It was 4 of the matches were a 1-up victory. Vanderbilt, I can't remember the guys who were in this match, but Vanderbilt did have one win that it was 5-4, but everything else is basically coming down to the last few holes. So I do believe Cannon won his matchup last year against Vanderbilt. I may be wrong. Okay. But so that, knowing that Cannon and Thomas are guys that, definitely lead our team, I imagine that, if they can go out and put good rounds together, the guys can hopefully be energized by that with their play. You get yourself into the quarterfinals, and then of course it's just, matchups and who gets hot at the right day, and trying to navigate a very, very difficult field. But that's, Alabama's number 10 in the country, and that's just considered 5th in the SEC right now as it relates to rankings. But it should be a phenomenal week to watch really good amateur golf, and a lot of players that I imagine we'll see on the PGA Tour in the coming years. I believe it's on the SEC Plus network for those that have access to it. I do think the final rounds will be on the SEC network, especially the match play rounds. So if you got access to it and you like golf, I would find a way to watch some of those guys play, because I expect it to be a very, very fun and entertaining tournament with the amount of players and the amount of good teams that are in it for the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, there's 7 teams in the top 15, five in the top 10 alone. So it's one of the premier college golf it is the premier college golf tournament, and it should be a phenomenal week. I think it'll be cool to watch between the top 3, and then obviously Tennessee and Alabama rounding out the top 5 in terms of just the rankings. But Auburn and Vanderbilt are 2 phenomenal teams, and it'll be pretty cool to see Sargent maybe making a run. And interesting that he said, we talked a little bit about it before, but interesting he chose to come back for next year rather than trying to start his professional career. But I think it's great for the SEC and another year of watching him and seeing him compete. But hopefully Alabama can make a run. But those top 3 teams, especially the top 2 in Auburn and Vanderbilt, are just so good, and they're gonna be tough to beat out in Sea Island this week.
Yeah,
and and I don't like to harp on this, but you can only imagine what, and it's I guess it's kind of like Charles Bediako with Alabama basketball. You can't help but imagine what this Alabama golf team would look like if Nick Dunlap was on the team, right? Like, yeah, I'm not. Alabama's, I think, ninth or 10th right now, depending on the poll you look at
Yeah.
in the nation. So it's not like they're doing poorly at all, and it's not like they're in jeopardy of missing the NCAA tournament or anything like that. But like, you can't help but imagine if you had the USAM on this team, a guy that is a professional golfer, what the team would look like. Um, so it seems like every single school has that one, that one player that, Gordon Sargent, guy, who's the guy at Ole Miss. There's a, I thought there was a good golfer at Ole Miss that I'm not,
I know
I can't.
Caleb Surratt is at
Yeah.
Tennessee. He was on the
Yes.
Walker Cup.
Well, yeah, not anymore. He's on John Rahm's team with Liv. I've actually played with
Oh,
him a couple times. He's from Charlotte. But yeah, he's on John Rahm's team for the Live. He played pretty well in the Vegas Live tournament, but another thing, what if he's still at Tennessee? What if Nick's still at Alabama? Two teams who are already top 10 who lost two players who are playing professionally right now.
both those guys were in the same group in Birmingham, and that was really fun. Just being able to watch both of them play at the same time, and knowing that they were coming off, being Walker Cup teammates and having a lot of success there. When we got out there, Nick was getting hot, making several birdies. Caleb finished really, really strong. That's two teams that if you had your number one guy, I mean, we're sitting here talking about 5 teams in the top 10. You could be talking about 4 teams in the top 5 or something like that.
No doubt.
But I mean, I like Alabama's chances in the SEC tournament. Do they do they uh do they stand a chance against the likes of like Auburn and Vanderbilt? That remains to be seen. They have beaten them, I believe, like in the Linger Longer tournament. I'm pretty sure they beat who was it? Was it Vanderbilt or Auburn? I can't. It was, maybe it wasn't either one of those. Maybe it was Ole Miss. But my point being is that they've competed. They've competed in these tournaments. They've beaten teams that are ahead of them. That's how golf is, right? It's not, the best team's going to go out and win every single tournament. Like we're seeing with Nelly Cortada.
Nelly Corda and
Corda.
Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah, we're not seeing that. It's not that level.
Which we should
But
mention, that shot that Nelly Corda had on 17 yesterday, which for those who didn't see it, she's got a 2-stroke lead already.
Mm-hmm.
It's a par 3. And
not holding anything back.
Yeah, her shot, if she, not that you can hit a shot like that a little bit softer, but it just had so much pace that when it hit the pin, it was very unlikely to go in. But it's just her winning 5 straight is very impressive.
Have we ever seen that on the men's? Well, usually they don't play 5 straight tournaments, so it's probably impossible to see, but just unreal. And Scotty was asked about it after in his press conference on Monday morning. Did he watch it? Which obviously he didn't. He was trying to win his own tournament, but have they talked, and is there like a competition? And he's like, well, she's beating my butt right now. 5 straight is insane, but I mean, he has four wins in this season. I put the poll out on our Twitter. I mean, Scotty might have already locked up the PGA Tour Player of the Year, and Nelly Corda definitely already locked up she could not play in a tournament the rest of the year, and she would still win the LPGA Player of the Year.
I've woken up some early mornings, especially last summer when they're playing like in the Evian Championship and some of those other tournaments over in Europe. That's really entertaining golf to watch. They hit the ball far, they putt great.
The putting is just phenomenal on the LPGA Tour. I think as a whole, I think the putting on the LPGA Tour is probably a little better than the PGA. They sink. It feels like they sink everything, and then a 3-putt doesn't exist.
Yeah, and I think kind of like the Caitlin Clark effect, maybe for women's college basketball, which I think women's college basketball was growing even before Clark, but she's definitely put a huge multiplier on that. And it's somebody like Nelly Corda, able to do that too, where you had Annika Sorenstam in the past and some of those other players like
Michelle
Wee West, that Nellie's success hopefully is a rising tide lifts all boats and brings up other players, and that'll hopefully be an opportunity. We're going to be highlighting these women anyway from Alabama in the future that are still playing, but hopefully for them to get more profile when people are watching more of these tournaments because Nellie's playing in it, and then they go on to win or something like that in the future.
I forget who it was, but did you see the shot? There was an advertiser board in the water, hit it off the advertiser board and bounced like 30 yards onto the green and rolled off. But have you ever seen anything like that? I was shocked.
I mean, it sounds like a shot Christian and I could pull off, but
Um, no, and I don't want to be generalist here, but would you say that in general, women's sports is generally more technical and more technically sound than men's sports?
Yeah, I mean, if you watch like Charles mentioned women's college basketball, they're around the rim, they're solid because they're not dunking it, they're not doing all these like the physical things down low that the men do. So the fundamentals, they're just on point because that's just how they play basketball. And I think golf is similar because while they're playing tees moved up, they're not hitting the ball as far as men. So because of it, their short game and their putting and their approach shots are that much better because you have to rely upon those things to get to the green because you're not Bryson DeChambeau or hitting a 380-yard drive at the Masters. And so because of that, they're like other parts of their game are in my opinion, like I said, the putting, I think across the board is probably better on the LPGA tour than the PGA because they work on that so much because obviously they're trying to put it within 5, 10 feet, whatever it might be. But I think because they're not hitting it as far, their objective mainly is to get it to the green. And because of it, their putting is phenomenal. So long story short, I would say, yeah, I no doubt.
And that's not me trying to like, discredit. I'm crediting like women are generally in life, and we won't get on this tangent or more or there's a lot of things I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to dig myself into a hole, and I don't.
I'll just say they're playing the game how the game is supposed to be played.
They're playing it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, using basketball for an example, basketball from the men's side has become a lot more physical. How can you drive to the rim? How can you finish through contact? And not that does not happen in the women's game, but just, the ability to move the ball around the court, the ability to, knock down shots, the ability just to, just play the game the right way. And I think that's similar what you're saying in the women's game. I mean, the ability to make long putts and use that to your advantage. Everybody talks about the most important part of the game is the short game. Well, they seem to be masters of that. That doesn't mean that, they can go out there and play on the men's tour because it's almost two completely different sports as far as the way you attack it. But as far as what you were asking, as far as fundamentals and technically sound, like, yeah, the women's game is very impressive on that foot.
So shifting slightly, let's go to the pros. We already talked about Nelly Korda and her run. I think she's won 5 straight.
Yeah, absurd.
Which people are talking a lot about, and we talked about this before the podcast, before we started recording. People were talking a lot about Scotty and what he's doing, winning 4 of his first 5 starts. And he made a comment on his press conference. I think, Matthew, did you have that?
I touched on that. I mean, he said he was asked if there's a competition between the two and between him and Nelly Korda, and he's like, I hope not, because if so, she's just beating my butt. I mean, 5 straight is unprecedented, and one of those being a major, which LPGA is 5 majors and whatnot, but 5 straight, I don't care what it is, 5 straight in an individual sport, whether it be golf, NASCAR, F1, tennis, whatever it might be, 5 straight in any of those individual sports is just unprecedented. And I put out a tweet. It's Nelly Korda Scotty Scheffler and Max Verstappen. I don't know if I know Christian follows F1 a little bit, but they're just in a league of their own. All three of them, it feels like every time they step onto the golf course or the track, they just can't be stopped. There's not a whole lot anyone else can do unless Scotty Scheffler's wife goes into labor to beat them. It's insane.
That's never gonna happen. She's never gonna go into labor.
Well, he was asked as soon as he stepped off 18, he was asked, I forget her name, but the on-course reporter said, "I assume the next time we see you, you'll be a father." He's like, "Yeah, I think so."
I mean, I guess, as far as our fantasy picks last week, should have known when he went immediately to the dive bar after winning the Masters. But my whole expectation, how they were playing out the story was Meredith was like basically at 39, 40 weeks.
Well, I said this in the group chat last week. I don't think she was. I mean, Christian said it. Or Charles, you might have, but she wasn't at the Masters, so obviously, like, she's approaching her due date, whatever her due date might be. But I heard, and it's all hearsay, but I heard she wasn't exactly that close. Like, she wasn't expected to go into labor last week or this week, but he was asked the question. So what is he going to do? Not answer it? But I mean, it benefited me in fantasy, so I'll take it.
Yeah, I think we were a little misled
Yes.
on exactly,
Hey,
because
we dealt with the same information. That's all I'm going to say.
Look, I'll say for me, like, yeah, I was misled, but I'm not disappointed in my group from
Oh, we'll get into that in a bit,
yeah,
but your group, both of our teams were phenomenal. I think we have what, 6 players between the two of us in the top 10.
yeah.
okay, well,
And
Team
then
Sykes
there's
over
Christian.
here, Team Sykes over here did, Shane Lowry and Nick Dunlap just, wow.
We'll get into that in a second, but the RBC, I mean, we keep harping on Scotty, but I was texting in the group chat. I was watching his entire round Thursday. He shanked one out of a greenside bunker. He full on shanked it. It hit off the hosel and went right over the green, to the right and over the green. Still managed to shoot 2 under on Thursday, which I think was outside the top 20 because the leader after the first round was JT Poston, who Charles was a sharp and picked at the end there, but he was 2 under on Thursday, which by Scotty standards is insane because what's the number? How many rounds has he shot under par? He hasn't had, I forget what the number is, but an insane amount of rounds without having a round over par. I mean, going into Monday morning, he hadn't made a 5, not a bogey. He hadn't made a 5 in 54 consecutive holes dating back to Thursday. And he talked about it in the post round press conference. He on 18 he bogeyed, it was a par 4, but because of the wind on Monday morning, on a par 4, the 18th hole, he hit driver 3-wood into the hole, and he was like, "I am not considering that a par 4. That was a par 5, and my par 3 continues." But like, he had one single bogey in the 4 rounds. He had a double bogey on Thursday, but he didn't have a single bogey until the 18th hole at the end of the tournament. That is just unbelievable. Like, he played 2 holes that combined 3 over, and that was everything else was a par. The other 70 holes were pars or birdies or eagles, and that is just, we talked about it last week. I don't think we've seen this level of dominance in the men's game. We're seeing it right now in the women's game. I don't think we've seen it since prime Tiger Woods. I mean, he just became the first and only the third ever, the first golfer to win the Masters and then the RBC Heritage in the next week since 1985. And that's just insane because now it's an elevated event. So a lot of the time, granted, the Masters champion just wouldn't play in the RBC because it's the next week, and now they have to be, well, not have to, but they have to because of all the money at stake because of the elevated events. But anytime you do something for the first time in 40 years and are only the third ever to do it since what, 1916, that is just absurd. And he's just on another level. And I don't know if we'll get to it next month, but I don't know how he's going to get stopped at Valhalla for the PGA.
Now, well, becoming a dad and whatever time he does take off with that, and how that's going to change your sleep routine. While that they may have some things already set aside because of the form that he's in, so that he can, not have to do some of those things. I am very interested to see how he continues to play once their child comes, because that
So
is.
it sounds like you're going to pass on him for the PGA, and he'll slip to me again for the PGA.
I don't know if you pass on him, but I do think that will have some kind of impact. And if it doesn't, like, just more credit to him of just how impressive all of this is. But I have to imagine there's got to be some impact. Not even necessarily from the physical side, but just the mental side of how sharp you are up there and going, playing a PGA and then playing a US Open at some point in June, and how precise you have to be, and just the mental grind that can be. I think there's going to be some impacts that, maybe he's not winning, but he's probably still having, top 10s, top 20s, and that's still saying something with everything that's going on off the course for him here in the next couple of weeks.
So I have a question, and you know, Charles, you know better than most. Do you think that Scotty has, because it does feel like he's kind of elevated his game slightly, not slightly, significantly relative to what and Scotty's been the world number one for not, he's been fighting Rom back and forth for a few years now, as far as going, and some Rory was thrown in there for a little bit as well. Do you think because he's going to have a kid, and because there might be some of that time off that you're saying, that Scotty's just trying to get his licks in now to get the money that he feels like he needs to be able to support? Because you talk about, golf is a little bit different than a regular job where you get paternity leave. Like in golf, there's no, like, if you're not playing events, you're not getting money. Do you think that there's something in the back of his mind saying, I need to win these tournaments so that I can take some time off and spend time with my child, and my wife as, the baby is born? And do you think that maybe we see Scotty skip a few events once his kid's born in order to, again, be there for his wife and be there for his kid?
I could see that, just because of how he kind of, his faith and family and what he talks about. And I do think, like, he's probably one that would say, yeah, winning the Masters is awesome, but this is going to be, the most important or second most important moment of my life outside of getting to Meredith. I mean, that's just how he presents to everybody. And I think that's genuine. And I think that's very real. I expect him to still play the majors, because you only get so many opportunities to win a major. But I do start to wonder, as you get past, the Open, does he take the rest of the year off and doesn't compete for the Tour Championship? Because of, like you said, like, he's obviously made a lot of money this year already. I mean, where does Ted Scott rank right now as far as,
He was
earnings
54th
this year?
last week. I mean, it was an elevated event, so he's got to be at top 50.
Yeah. So it wouldn't shock me, maybe, he gets to August and says, yeah, I'm number one in the world golf rankings, and I could go out and I could compete for the Tour Championship at East Lake and all that. But it wouldn't shock me if he shuts it down for a couple months and then just starts to get ready for the 2025 season. And some of that may depend too on how he finishes the PGA, the US Open, and the Open. I think there's still, anybody at that level, you got to be a competitor. And if he's not playing well, then I think he will continue to be out there and try to get back into form, as long as it's, not a negative on him as far as the mental side or anything like that too. I think he'll know when if he needs to shut it down, that he will shut it down, and, take care of himself, take care of his family, and take care of his game.
I think I want to agree and disagree with you. I mean, I think all we're going to see from this point on will be the majors, the signature events, and the Tour Championship. I mean, he's made enough money this year and made enough money in the past 3 years, really, to hire 7,000 nannies if he wanted to, and to help Meredith around the clock, which obviously that's not the same as being there, but and he obviously wants to be there. He said that countless times. He would have left the Masters to be there for the birth of his child, which speaks to how committed he is to his personal life outside of golf, but he's also a competitor. He didn't get to the number he didn't become the number one golfer in the world, and this stretch that we've talked that I just said we haven't seen since Prime Tiger. He didn't get to that by being just a good golfer. He is a committed golfer, and as much as he says golf doesn't define who he is and all that, it means a lot to him. And I don't think he's just going to let what could potentially be his prime slip away and look back on and regret that. So I think he's still going to play. I think 100% he'll still play the majors. We have the PGA next month, the US Open and the Open. He'll definitely play that, and I think he'll still play the signature events because of how much money is at stake. Which, I mean, he won what? I think 3.6 million this week. He won more this week than he won at the Masters because of the signature event. And I think to just walk away from that would be tough if he knows A, he can compete, and B, if he plays even his B game. Like we saw on Thursday, I just said he had a bad round and he still won it. So if he can still have any sort of consistency and compete, get that top 10 money or even the money for winning, I think he'd be a little crazy not to. I mean, he got there on Wednesday, he played 9 holes and won the tournament. He can be away for, I mean, people still have jobs, and this is his job. He can go away for 5 days and come back with 3.6 million and then be there for a month until a major and then do it again for 2 weeks. I think that's kind of what we'll see. He'll just not have as many practice rounds. Like he went back to Dallas. We saw the picture of him wearing the green jacket in the dive bar. He was there Monday and Tuesday with his wife, as he talked about earlier in the week, and then he went to Hilton Head and won a golf tournament and came back with money. So I think that's kind of what we'll see. We'll see him for 2 week stretches, a major, the signature event, and then he'll go away for a month and be with his family, and then come back and win 2 more tournaments.
And we talked a little to Robbie last week about, how many rounds of golf do you need at an event? Obviously he's played the RBC Heritage before, but how many rounds of golf do you need at an event to be comfortable with the course? Scotty Scheffler went out there Wednesday, played 9 holes, and then won the tournament. And it didn't look like he really kicked it into gear until Saturday, where he shot 8 under. And then all of a sudden you look up at the leaderboard on Sunday when the round's over and he's up by 5 strokes. It's just like, it's one of those things. And I said it in the Masters, it's not a bad thing, but it feels like Scotty on Sunday just kind of sucks the life out of a golf tournament, in the sense of like, he's just going to go in, play his methodical approach to golf and hit the shots he needs to hit. And he's going to let everyone else make mistakes around him, but he's not going to make a mistake. I mean, Matthew, you talked about it, like with his, not hitting a 5 or not shooting a 5, and what you said, 54 holes?
It was 54 holes. It was from Tuesday or Thursday. I think he made a double bogey on the second hole, and he didn't make a 5. That includes 3 rounds of par 5s until the 18th on which ended up being Monday, but the final round.
That just the pure just methodical approach that he has with golf, and the orthodox swing that he has. Like maybe that's what I need to be doing, is swinging it like Scotty Scheffler with the off balance, legs and all of this.
The psych shuffle.
Yeah, maybe that's.
I think a lot of professionals are saying the same thing right now.
It's just crazy the amount of, like, again, he's just making other people make mistakes. And I'm disappointed that I didn't pick Scotty last week in our fantasy picks because of Meredith. She scared me
Thank
away.
you.
But what's going to happen is we're going to pick them one of these days, like maybe for the Wells Fargo. Maybe Meredith isn't, hasn't had the baby yet. We're
If
going to pick them
Meredith
for the.
hasn't had the baby by the Wells Fargo, I think we need to have a talk.
Yeah.
Well, that's what. But I'm saying, like, maybe that's 3 weeks away. Who knows? Like, she could have just been 8 months or so, and sometimes with your first child, that you do tend to have it a little bit early. And so maybe it was just you know, that's what it was. And they said, oh, she could have the baby during the Masters, but maybe it wasn't actually. She wasn't actually due until
I think
like.
Sam Burns, his wife, was like legitimately and could have had their baby during the Masters, but I don't from what I heard, which this could all be wrong, I apologize, but from what I heard, she wasn't at like the due date wasn't expected to push into the Masters, but who knows? But I
Yeah,
mean, aside from just Scotty too, I mean, Sahith Theegala had a phenomenal week too. And who's that picked him? Was that Charles?
that was me. I picked him. That was
Oh
not
I,
yeah,
the
you
golfer.
I wanted to pick
your
him.
only points because I stole Ludwig from you. But he had a phenomenal week. I mean, and talk about a phenomenal Sunday. Justin Thomas, he was at lights out on Sunday. He shot 6 under 65, and he went from 21st going into Sunday to tied for fifth at 14 under on the day, which he was helped a little bit by the final round being pushed into Monday because the conditions on Monday, the wind was just whipping. I mentioned Scotty said the par 4 18th felt like a par 5 because he had to hit a driver 3-wood into a par 4, but he was helped a little bit because Colin Morikawa made a bogey, and so did, who was it? It was Colin Morikawa and Ludwig. Ludwig made a bogey as well. So because of that, JT jumped. He was tied for sixth going into Monday, which he already finished his round on Sunday to tied for fifth because of the tough conditions pushing everyone back. Sepp Straka as well, and just a phenomenal Sunday. It was his second best finish of the year. He what he won a tournament earlier in the year, and is that right? I believe he won it. I know it's his second best finish. Or no, he finished second in a tournament earlier in the year. That's what it was. And yeah, just really good week from him, and hopefully he can keep it up. Obviously, he talked about um on Thursday or Friday, one of the 2 days, he joined the broadcast booth and he was talking with him for a while. He's from Louisville, excuse me, and Valhalla is in Louisville, so he's returning home for the PGA Championship, which he talked about. That's the first professional tournament he's ever played in his hometown, and it's a major. So he's definitely going to be a popular pick that week, and whoever has the first pick that week will 100% be taking Justin Thomas. But yeah, I mean, just a good thing to see as we approach that in what 2 weeks, and it's hopefully he can keep it going because it's good to see one go through and get a solid finish in there after a poor performance at the Masters. Well, poor 4 holes on Friday at the Masters.
Yeah, I mean that's for him. It's those last 4 holes at the Masters. Everything else, he'd been playing even par up until then. And how much would the narrative have changed as far as what Justin Thomas's game is if he had stuck around, finished somewhere even par or even 2 or 3 over and just made the cut and then played his way into, who knows, a top 20, top 15 at the Masters, just because of how hard it was to score out there. So maybe things are starting to click for him, and especially as you said, a good time getting to go home and play Valhalla in your home state. It'd be a great time for him to, win another PGA championship and, shake off all the bad narratives or just things that he had to deal with last year and last year's season.
Well, and you wonder, and I apologize if you guys can hear the mowers in the background. But I wonder how many times Justin has played Valhalla. It has
Probably
to
a
be a
lot.
ton,
Probably a
right?
lot. not only that, but the PGA this year, the PGA next year. The PGA next year is at Quail, where he already won a PGA. So the next 2 years are the PGA Championship are courses that he's super comfortable with. But I, I mean, dozens of times. I imagine he's from Louisville. He had to have played it a bunch, and especially since he turned pro and he goes home to visit family, he probably plays that just about every time he goes home.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying is like I just like he probably he probably knows that course super well. Um
I hope so.
and yeah, the question that I think always comes into mind for me with Justin is where's his mental at, right? Like I don't know what's happened. I think we've talked about it a few times the last, couple podcasts. Like what has happened the past few weeks or the past few times he's kind of crumbled down the stretch. It's just his mental game is just not there. And you kind of saw a flip of that with the RBC this week where, he does end up finishing top 5, which is good for him. And that's kind of where he was at the beginning of the season. And the conversation at the beginning of the season was, okay, maybe Justin's kind of figured it back out. And then all of a sudden there's just like this stretch of where he doesn't have it figured out anymore. It's just a mental thing for him. And I think playing in courses that he's familiar with the master or not the masters with the majors is going to be crucial for him. So it'll definitely be interesting to see exactly where sorry, this is bothering me, exactly where he kind of shapes up for the next couple of weeks as far as the signature events are concerned.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he was the only Bama golfer that was really that would have made the cut had there been a cut. Rough week for Nick, but we talked about it. I mean, he's just trying. This year is all about experiencing being on the PGA Tour, experiencing what it's like to go from the Masters to the RBC Heritage in 4 days. Well, for him it was 6 because he didn't make the cut at the Masters. But it's all about the quick turnarounds, getting the experience under his belt at all these different courses, and that's why he's playing so much golf this year. Not only because he just turned professional, he's trying to get money, but he's trying to get experience at all these courses that he can take with him to next year. Because we talked about it with Robbie. I mean, playing a course that you're comfortable with is so important and can be such a beneficial factor. And I mean, Charles, you mentioned he's probably played more golf in the past 3 months since he won at the Amex than he has in his life. And so I would just attribute Nick's struggle the last couple weeks to not inexperience, but inexperience on the PGA Tour and the quick turnarounds and all that nature.
What I feel comfortable with Nick, while he didn't make the cut at the Masters and struggled this past week, and we talked about how, his Masters finish, he could take some positives from it because he was 10 over and fought his way back to 7 and just missing the cut by 1 stroke. But I feel like watching him, he is a guy who does a really good job of keeping his emotions in check. Like he never gets too high, he never gets too low. And so while you're sitting here where this week wasn't great and you missed the cuss last week, I think you're right. I would think he's not fine with how his play is, but he's not going to get down on himself where it could spiral out of control and becomes a major mental issue, like so many professional golfers we've seen, talk about, where it just falls apart for them and they can't play anymore. I don't see that being Nick's case. I think he probably is approaching this as far as just getting the experience and probably learning, like you said, with how much golf he's having to play, how do you take care of your body, having to play, 4 rounds in a week plus a practice round and getting your workouts in and different stuff like that. So there's a learning curve for him, but I feel pretty confident that, hopefully towards the end of this year, he plays a lot better. Hopefully he starts playing a lot better now, but he's going to be on the tour for a long time. I feel confident in saying that.
So let's get into it. Let's talk about the Zurich Classic and let's Matthew, you kind of want to give us the preview for it because you will be there, behind or what is it, under the ropes,
Inside the ropes.
inside the ropes. That's the word.
Yeah.
Covering it. So let's get a little preview.
Yeah. it's the only team event, only non-stroke play tournament on the calendar now that they got rid of the what was it, the WGC, the match play tournament. So it's the only non-stroke play tournament. It's just outside New Orleans at TPC Louisiana. So it's a really cool event, and obviously because of the past 2 weeks and everyone having to play obviously the Masters and then the signature event at the RBC Heritage, because of that the field has kind of struggled, but I mean, they're some of the best golfers in the world. I mean, Rory McIlroy is playing in it this year. His partner is Shane Lowry, and you have Patrick Cantlay, who just finished, I believe, third at the Heritage. He's playing with Xander Schauffele. I mean, I already know who my first pick in the second round is going to be because I have the last pick this week. But Sahith Theegala just finished second. Colin Morikawa was just second at the Masters, or finished third, I believe, because of rough last hole. But Matt Fitzpatrick is playing with his brother again this year, which if you watched Full Swing on Netflix, they talked about how cool that is because Alex Fitzpatrick doesn't have his tour card. He had a really good tournament at the Open last year, but he doesn't have his tour card. And if they win this event, all of a sudden he's a PGA Tour player, which even though it's a different style of event, it's still big deal. Joel Damon, who's turned into obviously a crowd favorite. Sepp Straka is in it, and a bunch of other names, but kind of a weak field as a whole just because it's a team event, and because of that, some of the names are watered down. But to explain the event, it's 4-ball and foursome formats, so it's not going to be stroke play or anything of that nature. The first and third rounds are 4-ball, and the second and final rounds are alternate shots. So it should make to be an interesting tournament. And the reigning champion is from Alabama. So and Davis Riley, he played with Nick Hardy last year, playing with him again this year. As Christian mentioned, I'll be there on Thursday. I'll be inside the ropes helping out with the broadcast and everything of that nature. So really looking forward to it. It's a beautiful course. I unfortunately didn't, but I could have played it last year, but didn't work out scheduling wise. I'm excited to see the course and walk inside the ropes and see Rory, because we talked about Rory last week and none of us picked him for fantasy because he had a rough Masters and didn't feel like his golf, even though I believe he's a second ranked player in the world right now because of all the live players not being ranked, but didn't feel like his game really represented being the second best player in the world. And then the first 3 rounds, it looked like he could win the thing. And then Sunday he slipped back a little bit and fell out of the top 20. But I think he's going to be fun to watch. And obviously the Patrick Cantlay, Xander Schauffele pairing is going to be pretty hard to beat.
Do we want to get into picks?
We can get into picks if you guys want.
So real quick though, so Nick Hardy, I think that's the guy that played with Davis Riley. He got his tour card last year because he won.
I believe so, right?
Because I haven't seen him in many events.
I could be wrong, but I remember watching Full Swing, the second season that came out a couple of weeks ago, or 2 months ago, or whatever it was. Matt Fitzpatrick talked about the only reason he won the RBC and then he played in Zurich the next week. The only reason he played was to get Alex Fitzpatrick, hopefully help him out and get him some exemption. It might not be a tour card, but it's definitely some exemptions because of winning. And that was the only reason that Matt Fitzpatrick played in it after winning. So he might not have gotten his tour card, but he definitely got exemptions into tournaments.
He's got his tour card. He's played in the
Okay.
Century, the Sony, the Farmers,
Then there you go.
Pebble Beach. Yeah, I guess they just don't give major exemptions. That doesn't give
that would make sense because I mean, if Patrick Cantlay went out and shot a 30 under by himself and Xander Schauffele had a horrible week, they still both get credited with the win, which, I mean, you can't do that, obviously, Friday, Sunday, considering it's alternate shot. But, I mean, best ball, you can just get carried by the better golfer on that day.
I don't think he gets signature events, even though he was in the players.
That would make sense. It's also weird because the signature events Like I mentioned, what's Wesley Bryan. He won the RBC a couple years ago, but because it's a signature event, he can't play in it. So it's interesting to see, and we're going to see the same thing at Wells Fargo, which I mean, it was Max Homa's first win. It was Wyndham Clark's first win. Rory's won there a bunch of times. All three of them will obviously be in it, but it's interesting to see because when you win it, you get to play the tournament for years to come. Wesley Bryan wasn't able to play it, even though he won it a couple years ago. So that's kind of an interesting element of the whole signature events that some of the past champions aren't eligible to play because they're not, what, 69 players were in the field this week. So, but that's kind of, it's been pretty interesting. Something I noticed watching this week and watching Wesley climb up in Punta Cana and compete there. But I thought that was pretty odd, and it sucks because I love Wesley and he's been cool to follow. But I'm kind of going off on a tangent here. But yeah, I believe Nick, he got his tour card because of it.
Sorry, I'm pulling up the pairings so I know.
You're good.
As
So
I pull up the pairings, I do have a confession to make.
let's
As
hear
you
it.
know, I had a really good week last week, and I was coming off a very poor first week with the Masters. I had somebody reach out to me wanting to be my caddy for picks. His name is Nugent.
Oh, so we're dealing with a handicapper over here,
No,
huh?
no, 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 no. He's not a handicapper. He's a caddy, and his name is Nugent. So Nugent and I are ready to go for the Zurich this week again.
It seems like a little bit of collusion, if you ask
I
me.
think so too, but hey,
I don't.
whatever you
You know
need to
what?
be.
You're allowed a caddy in golf, and I've got a caddy
Listen,
helping me with my
I'm
pick.
in last place.
if
I
you
need
come
a
at the king,
caddy.
you best not miss. But and also just some house cleaning, as Christian calls it. We edited the scoring for signature events. For majors, we're keeping it. You get 10 extra points for each finishing position, but halfway through on Saturday, I believe it was, because there's no cuts and no possibility of negative points, we edited the 10 for signature events down to an additional 5 points. So that's why, like breaking down my score, Justin Thomas, because it's double for Alabama golfers, he got top five. So that was 15, turns into 30, plus a five, turned into 35. Scotty Scheffler, he won. So that's 25 plus five. So he got 30. So actually, Justin Thomas got more for finishing in the top five because he's an Alabama golfer than Scotty Scheffler did for winning, and so on and so on. But it's 5 additional points for signature events, and we're going to keep it at 10 for the majors because you can still get cut and get those negative points, which obviously takes away, and which is why last week I won with a score of 40, and this week I won with a score of 80 because there are just no cuts. And last place this week was 30 when last week it was 10 because the cuts, and we all had, well, I didn't, but we all had negative points from a player who was cut, which bring those scores down. So we edited it this week. But to recap, this week I finished first with 80 points because Scotty won, Justin Thomas got top five, and Ludwig Oberg got top 10. Charles got second. He had Patrick Cantley, who finished in a tie for third. JT Poston, who finished in a tie for five after being a leader through, I think, every day except for through 18 and through 36, I believe. After 54, it was all Scotty. And then he had Colin Morikawa, who finished in ninth. And then Christian finished in last with 30 points. The only points he got were Sahith Theegala, who finished second, and if Meredith went into labor, he would have gotten some more points out of that. But he gets second, and then Xander Schauffele, who finished in 18th at 9 under, so he finished 30. And then the overall standings, I'm still in first at 125 points, and then Charles and Christian flipped. Charles is now at 75 points after 65 of those came this week. And then Christian is currently projected to eat a pimento cheese sandwich. He is in last at 55 points.
Hey, at least I'm keeping it, slow and steady wins the race. If I get 25 points every single event, then maybe, you
Yeah,
guys
good.
have those highs.
I got 80 this week.
Yeah, but you could have a week that
I
you
know,
get
but
10.
if you get 25 every week, that would take you 3 weeks to get 5 below me.
Yeah, maybe that happens. How do you know? You never know. You never know.
And the order for this week, I picked first last week. So it's Christian, Charles, and myself. There are 4 Bama golfers in the field, but 3 separate teams. Wilson Furr and Robbie Shelton are playing together, so that's 1 pick. Davis Riley, the reigning champion, he's playing with Nick Hardy, so that's 1 pick. And then who was it? Lee Hodges, he's playing with
Very good.
um, yeah, Gary Woodland. So that's the third Alabama golf team. Same draft format, same points format, which this is our first non-elevated signature event, so it'll be 25 for a winner, 15 for a top 5, 10 for a top 10, and 5 for top 25. And then there are cuts this week, so -5 for a missed cut unless it's an Alabama golfer, no penalty. Alabama golfers are doubled. So yeah, so Christian, you have the first pick.
I got to go with the reigning champions, Davis Riley and Nick Hardy. I mean, even though I will say that Lee Hodges Gary Woodland pairing is a very very good pairing. I think I would be dumb, and I'm trying to make smart picks this week. I'd be dumb not to take the reigning champions. So Davis Riley and Nick Hardy, welcome to Team Sykes.
Look, I know Lee and Gary should be the pick for me, but we had Robbie on last week. Wilson played pretty well this week. I am going to go Robbie Shelton and Wilson Furr as my Bama team. This is an Alabama golf podcast. When you got an opportunity to have 2 Alabama golfers on your team, you go with it. So I'm rolling with Robbie and Wilson this week.
I was hoping you were gonna let him fall to me. I knew you wouldn't because you and Robbie have a relationship, but I was hoping to get 2 golfers
So
myself.
I got 2 Alabama golfers, brother and my sister-in-law, very close with Robbie and Kelsey. And then my youngest son is named Wilson. So it just all works
All the
out
signs.
great. Yeah, it just works out really, really well this week to go with Robbie Shelton and Wilson Furr.
There you go. So that leaves me with Lee Hodges and Gary Woodland. That'll do it for the Alabama golfers. I have the first pick on the come around, so I'll take Patrick Cantley and Xander Schauffele. I think I'd be an idiot not to pick them.
That was my pick. I'm just kidding.
I don't think either of their wives are in labor, so he's not going to fall to the third pick.
I am torn between McIlroy and Lowry and Zalatoris and Thigala, but I think I am going to go Zalatoris and Thigala. I just think, kind of what you talked about, we don't feel like McIlroy is really playing at the number 2 level right now. Shane obviously didn't have a great week, so I'm going to go with Zalatoris and Thigala.
Well, I should have known that those were not going to be there. Let me get Rory and Shane, obviously. I think that's the solid pick. And
I'll be
then
following them.
and then let me get hold on. I'm looking through the pairings right now. Let me get Davis Thompson and Andrew Novak.
Wow.
I think Andrew Novak has played pretty well this season. Davis Thompson's done decently well. I think that's a solid pick for me. So
There you go.
I'm going to go Billy Horschel and Tyson Alexander.
Billy Ho.
Billy played well last weekend and I believe has won this event previously in the team format. So I like his experience of how this tournament shapes up. And while he didn't win it with Tyson, I still think that could be helpful for the pairing.
I'll get back to that because I'm looking for their pairing. I can't find it right now. I'll find it. But anyway, yeah, Billy Ho coming off a win. I think that's a good pick. That was his crazy enough. I mean, he won the tour championship a couple years ago, but that was his 8th win. And he is he's struggled as of late, and he's trying to get back into the top spot and play those signature events and get his I don't think he played at the Masters last week because he wasn't in it, but yeah, he played really well. I mean, 23 under is just absurd no matter where you play. So I like that pick. that said, I am going to go a couple guys. Well, I have two, I guess. So I'll go Colin Morikawa and Kirk Kitayama, with my first pick there, and then a couple guys I could go with. I like how Højgaard's been playing recently. Sepp Straka played really well this week, but I'll go Matt Fitzpatrick. He's trying to get Matt Fitzpatrick and Alex Fitzpatrick. He's trying to get Alex's tour card and get him into these tour events. So I'll go with Matt and Alex there.
Yeah, Nugent and I talked about that one a lot, and that was about to be my pick because you could see it in full swing how much it meant to Alex to be in that tournament. I expect him to play a little bit better this time around. I'm going to go with Wyndham Clark and Bo Hostler for my next pick.
Bo Hostler's playing with Sam Ryder.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Must have looked at the wrong sheet. My bad. I'll take a mulligan on that one then if y'all give me a mulligan. I will go with Malnati and Knox then.
There you go.
Do I get 2 picks here?
Yes.
Yep.
Are these my final 2 picks?
Final 2.
Okay, final 2. Make them count. Make them count. Final 2. Make it Joel Damon and Keith Mitchell.
That'll be a fun pairing.
Yeah. I don't know if they're gonna do well, but it's a fun pairing. I know I said I was gonna be smart, and here I am. And then let me get Adam Hadwin and Nick Taylor.
I like that pick. Not saying I didn't like any of your other picks, but I like that pick.
With my last pick, I'm going to go with the old guys, Steve Stricker and Matt Kuchar.
There you go.
Yeah, I like having some experience to be the caboose of the team. I guess confirm they're on the same team since I messed that up.
Yeah, I'll confirm all this. I have the odds pulled up, which is what I'm looking at right now. Yeah, you said it was Stricker and Kuchar.
Yep.
Let's see. 1 second. This is great podcasting. Sorry.
We already had mute issues that you're not going to see, but they're in there.
I'll find it and confirm it, and if not, I'll give you a pick before me.
Matt Kuchar and Steve Stricker are playing together.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So where does that leave me? Do I go Højgaard and his brother for the same reason I went with Fitzpatrick, or do I go Sepp Straka?
I was thinking about Seb.
Sepp played really well this week. But I think I like Højgaard. I think I'm going to go the Højgaard brothers, Rasmus and Nikolai. Nikolai obviously being the better of the two. Who knows? I mean, this spot was picked. The last pick was picked for GT Post in the 18 and 36 hole leader. So who knows? But perfect. So let me write that in real quick, and then I'll read off that.
I'm just saying, you guys are going to be upset when I have the top 5. So
let's see. Perfect. All right. So we have Christian's team. He had the first overall pick, which had to be used on an Alabama golfer. He went with the reigning champion, Davis Riley and Nick Hardy. Second round, he took Rory McIlroy and Shane Lowry. Then he went with Davis Thompson and Andrew Novak, Keith Mitchell and Joel Damon in the 4th, and Nick Taylor and Adam Hadwin to round things out. And after him is Charles. He went with Robbie Shelton and Wilson Furr in the first round. He went with the double Alabama pairing. In the second, he went Sahith Theegala and Will Zalatoris, 2 guys who've been playing really good golf. In the third, he picked Billy Ho, Billy Horschel, and who's Billy Ho playing with again? I just wrote down Billy Ho.
I had it written down. Sorry.
I was trying to find him. I couldn't.
Tyson Alexander.
That's right. Billy Horschel and Tyson Alexander. Billy Ho coming off a win last week in the in Punta Cana. Then he went Peter Malnati and Russell Knox, and rounding things out with Steve Stricker and Matt Kuchar in his final. And then I was left with Lee Hodges and Gary Woodland. First overall pick, non-Alabama golfers. I went Patrick Cantley and Xander Schauffele. Then Colin Morikawa, Kurt Kadiyama, Matt Fitzpatrick, and Alex Fitzpatrick, and another brother pairing in Nikolai Højgaard and Rasmus Højgaard. And quick question, Christian, have we learned how to pronounce Ludwig's name?
Ludwig Oberg.
There we go. We're making progress on this podcast. We know ball.
Well, I'm just going to let you guys know. Last week I wanted to pick Ludwig and it didn't work out. And I could have had, a lot more points than what I was going to have.
Coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Yeah, I know. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. But yeah, those pairings will be up on our Twitter page so that you guys can see those and follow along if you guys want to. I'm trying to get out of eating a pimento cheese sandwich because I absolutely hate pimento cheese. Do we have a milkshake of the week this week? Because last 2 weeks have been the peach.
So it's Louisiana, which known for their Cajun food, which would just be a Bloody Mary, I guess. But we're not going to go with a Bloody Mary because Bloody Marys are gross, and that's not a milkshake.
So like a Mardi
king
Gras,
cake,
king
cake milkshake. Yep, it's Mardi Gras already passed, but king cake is a lifestyle. So we'll go with the king cake. We'll go with the king cake milkshake. So green, purple, and yellow is the flavor of the week. We'll call it.
There you go.
Well, next week we hope to potentially have some current Alabama golfers on the podcast. We're still working through the specifics of those. And we have a few things coming up down the line. The Byron Nelson's next week, and then following the Byron Nelson is the Wells Fargo and then the PGA championship. So these next 2 weeks we're going to try to do a little bit more focused on the college side with the men's golf, just because we're not doing signature events. So we'll try to do a lot of a preview of the SEC championship, or I guess it'd be a recap of the SEC championship because that starts this week. And then previewing the NCAAs. And then on top of that, obviously with the signature Wells Fargo coming in a couple of weeks, we'll do that as well. So definitely a lot of things down the line. We have a couple of interviews maybe lined up, but stay tuned. And do you guys have anything else as far as anything we need to cover on the golf side?
Real quick, you guys playing any golf this week?
I might be playing this weekend. Sam's out of town for the next starting Friday for the next 6 days, so it might be a lot of golf.
That's golf time.
Yeah,
yeah. Got 18 holes slotted for Friday, so hopefully
there you go.
I've
got my member guest this weekend, so hopefully I'm coming back with a trophy or a little money maybe.
Yeah.
So
we'll guys this week as they play out in Sea Island. What's
Roll Tide
championship.
Yeah. Good luck to the men's golf team that they, and hopefully the women's golf gets selected to the NCAAs. Again, I don't really know where they currently stand, but hopefully they get an opportunity there. But if we don't have anything else, I think we're good to close it out. So as always, we'll end with the Roll Tide, and we'll see you next week.
Yep. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.